Okay, how on earth did I surprise my uncle with the Toni Braxton? It's the question you've all been asking, so I'm here to show you exactly how I did it. But for anyone who hasn't seen the clip yet, I'm just gonna play it. This is when I surprised my uncle with Toni Braxton. He has no idea that she's behind him. I told him we were making a video of her biggest fan, so he had to watch something. This is at my job. Look. Look at his face. Look at that. Okay. My uncle's reaction, first of all, that man went through every single emotion possible when Toni Braxton was behind him. All right, so this all happened actually because I was fired. No, like literally, I was let go from a job that I actually hated. And because of that, I was able to pivot into a career in journalism and media that I actually wanted to be in the entire time. So fast forward, when this happened, I was a producer at BuzzFeed News. Yes, the BuzzFeed. And so this was around the time when live video was getting really popular on Twitter. So I was hired to work on a live show produced for Twitter for BuzzFeed News that was called AM to DM. And so I produced a bunch of segments with like celebrities and politicians and a whole bunch of different newsmakers. And so because I'm just naturally very tapped into the culture, I ended up being brought into the production meetings for bookings as a producer. So I had a say into who we ultimately booked for the show. And I always knew that if I ever had the opportunity to book Toni Braxton, I absolutely would. And somehow I would make it so that my uncle would be able to be involved because he is the biggest Toni Braxton fan ever. Like I've always known that he is a huge Toni Braxton fan. So an opportunity came. There she was, Toni Braxton in our booking sheets. And I was like, yes, yes, Toni Braxton, 100% yes, we need to have Toni Braxton on the show. So once she was booked, I was like, all right, how can I get my uncle involved? He needs to be involved. So I drafted up this idea to have Toni Braxton surprise a fan. Now that fan was going to be my uncle. I sent the idea to her team, they agreed to it. So then I told my aunt first. I'm like, I need permission from my aunt for me to put her husband in this position. So my aunt was like, yeah, of course, like he loves Toni. So then I told my uncle. Now my uncle, as you know, he's a firefighter, FDNY, crazy schedule. So I told him, I was like, there's this opportunity at my job where we're doing like a fan cam situation where you can just go in front of the camera and just talk about how much you love Toni Braxton. And then we're going to send that video to Toni Braxton for her to react to. And he was like, yeah, sure. So my uncle agrees. He ends up obviously coming to my job. So mind you, Toni Braxton is already in the building when my uncle is there. Now she's in the studio doing her regular studio shoot interview with our host at the time. And we're kind of like setting up the surprise. So we bring my uncle to this like kind of like remote area in the office away from the studio, and we have a singular camera in front of him, and we give him some noise canceling headphones. So he puts the headphones on, and the idea is for him to look into the camera after watching something so he can do his like shout out to Toni Braxton and just like tell Toni Braxton how much he loves her and why he loves her and whatnot. So he's sitting there, he has his noise canceling headphones on, he's really focused on whatever he's looking at. And I think also too, he was just in an unfamiliar place. So maybe he didn't know if it was a producer coming up behind him or whatever. So so as you can see, he has no idea that Toni Braxton was directly behind him when she came up behind him. I will never forget that man's reaction for the rest of my life. As you can see, he went through 11 different emotions when she tapped on his shoulder and then he finally realized who it was. He, speechless, wanted to cry, like I don't even, he kept it together. And then as you can see, that exhale when she hugged him, man, it worked out perfectly. It worked out perfect. It could not have gone any better than what I originally planned and what I had in my mind. And like, shout out to Toni Braxton for being so sweet and agreeing to do that. It was just perfect. Like, he will never forget that for the rest of his life. It was perfect. And then afterwards, she was so nice. She took pictures with him. She took pictures with me, the crew. It was great. Like, thank you so much, Toni Braxton, for making that dream come true for my uncle. Like, it was so good. So yeah, this all happened because I got fired. And it was truly like God's redirection, because I was initially scared to quit my job to go to grad school. But when I was fired, I was like, okay, sure, grad school it is. And I can talk more about this, but I went back to school, grad school, to get my master's in journalism when I was 27 years old, my late 20s. And mind you, at the time, I had a toddler. I used to bring him to class with me. He walked across the stage with me when I ultimately did graduate and get my diploma. Honestly, one of the most proud moments of my entire life. But that whole process was no joke, because like I said, I was in my late 20s. I was a 27, 28-year-old intern with all these other interns who were like 19, 20, 21. It was a time. But yeah, I worked my butt off the entire time, interned, and then I ultimately landed my first job 3 days after I graduated at the Today Show at NBC. And then it led me to that moment where I was able to surprise my uncle with Toni Braxton. So I can talk more about that journey of me going back to grad school and entering this career field that I'm in now. But I just want to say thank you so much to everyone, all of your comments. Your comments were so funny. And yes, I better be the favorite niece for life. But yeah, if you have any other questions, just ask me in the comments. You can literally ask me anything. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.